I'm here to say I love you again and read another story to you. This one is called Eric and the Christmas Horse. And I think everybody that knows me knows that I like horses, and I know some of you do too. So I thought you might enjoy this story about the Christmas horse. I'm sitting here by the fire and just, ooh, it's so warm. Grandpa made a beautiful fire. Eric, who lived in the city of Goburg in Sweden, had been waiting for a long time for the snow to come. He was lonely, for there were no other children in the building where he lived with his mother and father. In fact, there were no other children in the whole street. If it snowed, thought Eric, I would build a snowman and maybe an igloo. On Wednesday, Eric awoke very early. It was St. Lucy's Day, the 13th of December, and Christmas was not far off. It was so quiet that Eric wondered what was happening. He could not even hear the noise of traffic from the corner. All the usual sounds seemed muffled. He rushed to the window and looked out. It was snowing! When Eric had finished his breakfast, he took his school bag and went downstairs, through the courtyard and out onto the street. The snow-covered ground was soft and white. The people in the street had snow on their clothes, but they all looked happy. Suddenly, Eric heard clip-clop, clippity-clop. He looked down the narrow street. There was old Lindbergh with his cart horse, Mari, coming to deliver packages. Eric had known Mr. Lindbergh and Mari for a long time. Today they looked especially sad. Mr. Lindbergh's clothes were wet from the snow and Mari's head drooped, almost touching the ground. Eric rushed back to say hello. Oh dear, sighed Mr. Lindbergh. What Christmassy weather. We're lucky, Eric. You can run upstairs to your mother's kitchen and get warm. But it's not so good for many other people who live or have nowhere to live. Eric had often wondered where Mr. Lindbergh and his brown horse lived. Eric felt sure they must sleep somewhere, under a bush at night or down by the water. He thought of inviting them to come into his kitchen, but then he wondered how Mr. Lindbergh could take Mari up the 4 flights of stairs. At school that morning, Eric thought only of Mr. Lindbergh and Mari. His mind was not on the St. Lucy's Day celebration. He wished that Mari were a very little horse, just about the size of a dog, so that he could pick her up. Then he and Mr. Lindbergh could take her upstairs to Mother's kitchen where it was nice and warm. That afternoon, when Eric got home from school, Mr. Lindbergh and Mari came back again. It was snowing even harder, and a cold wind was blowing, and Eric was patting Mari. Mr. Lindbergh asked, "Why do you look so solemn, Eric?" "I was wondering," said Eric, "if you and Mari could come into my house for Christmas." Mr. Lindbergh seemed surprised. He thought for a minute. "Yes, maybe we will visit you. But how would you like to take a drive with Mari and me right now?" Eric thought it was a good idea. "Then run upstairs and tell your mother," said old Mr. Lindbergh. Eric was soon sitting in the cart beside Mr. Lindbergh, driving through the city. As Mari trotted along, snow drifted around her hoofs. The streets looked beautiful as the snow swept along the white clouds. The Christmas decorations gleamed red, yellow, and blue. All these lovely sights did not cheer Eric much as they drove over a bridge. "What are you thinking about, Eric?" "Well, all the people who have nowhere to live, like you and Mari." Mr. Lindbergh shook his head in amazement, but he did not answer. They passed a lot of traffic, buses and motorcycles. Suddenly, Mr. Lindbergh said, "I have an idea. Wouldn't it be nice to have some nice warm herb tea and some hot chocolate or something warm to warm ourselves up?" "Then we must go home to Mother," Eric said. "That's a very kind offer, Eric," said Mr. Lindbergh. "But we are already in Hissinger, and I live not far from here. My wife is expecting Mari and me." "I wonder if you could come over to my house." Mari clip-clopped by the shipyards. It was beginning to get dark. "Well, you come on over to my house. You could sleep on the kitchen sofa where I usually sleep, and I could sleep on some cushions on the floor, and Mari could come live downstairs at my house," said Eric. "Oh, we have such a happy house." Mr. Lindbergh nodded thoughtfully, but he still was thinking. Now they were coming to a place with trees and beautiful wooden houses. "Stay here," said Mr. Lindbergh to Mari. Mari ate her oats from her feed bag. "This is where Mari lives," said Mr. Lindbergh. "It is a very nice stable," said Eric. Then they walked down the street. Mr. Lindbergh took Eric by the hand, and they trudged together up the little steep hill. It was quiet and peaceful here. Mr. Lindbergh and Eric were standing in front of a little cottage. Mr. Lindbergh opened the gate. "Welcome home," said Mrs. Lindbergh. "The tea is just made and the cakes are fresh in the oven." Mr. Lindbergh smiled. "This is Mrs. Lindbergh. This is where I live." They went inside the cottage and had a very nice time. Mrs. Lindbergh fixed them something to eat, and Eric held one of their cats. They went outside after a little while, and they made a snowman. In the evening, after Eric got home, he made a snow lantern out of snowballs. His mother lit a candle, and Eric put it inside the lantern. He even made a little horse. He put a little wooden horse near the snowballs that he made. Soon he thought, "It will be Christmas." It's kind of a cute story. Eric didn't know that Mr. Lindbergh had a house to live in, and he didn't know that Mari had a barn to live in. Have some of you been to my red barn and seen my horses? Diamond and Pansy and Barney. They live in a barn. Right now it's cold outside, it's snowing, so I put a coat on Barney, not on Barney, but I put a coat on Pansy and a coat on Diamond. Barney has lots of fur, so I didn't think he needed one. but I'll watch him so he doesn't get too cold. I went outside and took their picture today, and they kind of like the snow. They had to dig around with their noses into the snow, and then they would eat the little pieces of grass they could find. Here's Grandpa's nice fire again. It's hot. See how it's glowing yellow and orange? That's how my heart feels. It feels all glowy and warm with love for you.